Hi, it's John from Under the Table Hot Sauce. I'm here with my friend, the star of the show, Jimmy Farrow.
Yeah, what's up, JB?
Nah, nothing.
It's been a hot summer, and for all your barbecue needs, you can go to underthetablehotsauce.com. 13 unique flavors to choose from, created and bottled in a Long Island kitchen. Underthetablehotsauce.com. Let's go chow, JB.
Let's do it.
All the flavor, twice the burn.
You know, you're watching. Okay, so let me.
You're watching Long Island's
number
number
one.
I got it.
one
Okay.
It's Martina Farrow,
Well,
dude.
you said this is Max Payne.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
This is Max Payne, and you're watching Long Island's #1 broadcast, Monty and the Pharaoh. So if you know what's good for you, you'll stick around.
Let's make sure I record. Look, everybody knows your problems with Dynamite Kid and everything else, but you didn't train with him at first, or you just
No,
met him
never.
when you were in the
How did-
WWE?
They'd already, the Bulldogs are already gone to the WWF. They'd been down with Vince for 2 years before I ever got there.
What were your thoughts when Dynamite Kid passed? Were you like, fuck him? Pardon my French, but I forewarned you. I mean, how did you feel when he passed away? Were you like, bittersweet or, good, he was a jerk anyway? What was your thoughts?
Look, when a man passes over and goes across the Rainbow
Right.
Bridge, as it were,
Right.
he's got to go in peace.
Understood.
And
Understood.
had he still been alive,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have spit on him if he was on fire. But
Understood.
he'd passed, so
Understood.
he gets to be forgiven.
Was he truly as nasty as some of the stories we hear? I mean,
Absolutely.
why do you think he was that way? He did not have to be that way. The fans loved him. He was a great wrestler. We all appreciate it. What was his problem?
I don't know. I'd only be surmising, and I wouldn't want this to be considered in a lawsuit.
No. Just being fair. What was
Right.
your take? Why was he like
He was
this?
short.
Okay.
I mean,
Napoleon complex? I mean, what are we talking?
Napoleon complex
Fair enough.
completely, and also being an Englishman.
Okay.
Most of the time they're unhappy. And I don't
Interesting.
say that as a generalization.
Okay.
You get a bunch of fellas that are cockneys and they want to fight the world, and they just, nothing makes them happy.
Right.
And anything that somebody else gets or does drives them insane. And he had the ability, because he was a major league talent
Sure.
with Vince,
Sure.
that he could pull stunts off and would never get called on the carpet
Was
about
Davey Boy Smith as bad as him, or was he?
it. No, not even close.
So not even close.
Davey Boy
Interesting.
Smith tried to be, but he couldn't.
Tried to be.
Well, he tried to. When I say tried to be, but Davey
Just didn't work.
didn't
Yeah.
have the comedic timing. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And he was a decent bloke, and as a matter of fact, to bear that out, he had a wonderful son who's a champion bloke.
Right.
I was sadder obviously about Davey Boy Smith going than I was about Tom Billings.
Okay. How about Dynamite's ring legendary status? Do you agree with that? I mean, as far as the wrestling itself.
Look, he was a hell of a worker.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. I could be questioned as being barely average, but I made people laugh. I had people liking me, and that was the name of the
Effective.
game.
Well,
And,
you-
you
bottom
wanted
line
me
is
to take a
effective.
bump, I took the
Right.
bump.
You were entertainment, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
that's what wrestling is. It's entertainment,
I
right?
tend to think
For
that
the
too,
hardcore fan, maybe
Sure.
a little different, and I
Well,
understand that. but,
yes and no, but the thing is that I'm doing a different job.
Right.
My
Right.
job,
And did it well.
I was a face. My
Right.
job was to be a face, and my job was to believe in myself and who Outback Jack was, the same as Bob Buckland believed in himself as the world
Absolutely.
champion.
Sure.
And that might sound tinfoil nut mad, but it's not.
Makes sense.
It's something you've got to give back to your audience.
Does Vince have it right with the balance? Like, Vince McMahon's interpretation of professional wrestling leans more towards the entertainment, but I believe that there's still plenty of good wrestling involved. Is Vince accurate in his how he presents the product to the public?
I think Vince is very attuned in with what is socially acceptable at present, and is, I think you'll see things swing back to the way they were, like Nikolai Volkov was the world's most hated heel, him and the Iron Sheik.
Right.
And it'll swing back that way because human nature swings back that way. And it's been long enough time. I mean, the fellas at work now, I mean, they're incredible athletes.
Sure.
And a lot of them have wrestling experience and were phenomenal collegiate wrestlers. You know, I couldn't knock the skin off a cussard when it come down to collegiate wrestling. I'd last about 7.5 seconds.
Do you still watch wrestling today?
Occasionally, yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do.
What's
you
your
know.
take on the current state of the product? If you have one.
Current state of the what?
The current state of the product itself that they're presenting to the viewing audience.
The current state of the fraud?
Of the product.
Oh,
you
the
know?
product.
how,
Okay.
Of the wrestling
how do you
product.
feel
the
about
pro-
the wrestling,
Look.
more so the wrestling in the ring itself?
The fellas are all in there tough, and they're tough fellas. We were all tough fellas. Anybody that got into the WWF/E were tough guys. There's no way around it. It wasn't a place for babies. And these fellas are so capable of their fighting ability. I mean, Brock Lesnar going to the UFC or whatever it is.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's not for the faint of heart either. And although I unfortunately managed to see him on YouTube get beaten every time he goes in there, but that's probably for the
He actually
promotion
had a
thing.
pretty good run. I mean, he was champion,
Yep.
you know, for a while. And yes, he took his loss on the way out the door, but in general, he actually helped legitimize pro wrestling, if you think about it.
I think the thing, to go back to the serious nature of your question, people know what professional wrestling is. It tells a story. It's entertaining.
Right.
So to build its bona fides back, it has to be and seem to be even more tough. And now you've got fellas in there that are literally beating the crap out of one another, doing holds and making maneuvers that are dangerous. And you know, and it's the way it is, and that's what social media is a spectator. Social media is full of parasites. They just want to see what is going to happen next. I mean, you could see a young girl nowadays stand in the middle of a street and look at an oncoming bus and say, "Oh my God, I've got to film this." It's like, darling, get out of the fucking road.
Very smart.
And wouldn't be smart enough to do it.
He's right. Yeah, but it will get more views if I just stand here and let the bus hit me.
Well, it's,
know?
it's funny. It's really not funny how the
He's
world
right.
has turned. Social media
He's
is
so right. Oh, my God.
Social media has really changed the world to the positive and to the negative. Jack, I want to bring it back a little bit.
More so
Your
to
wonderful
the
wife's
negative,
here.
but yes, yes.
Tell me about your wife a little bit.
Christina,
Christina,
she's from South Africa.
South Africa.
Yes.
How do we get Australia and South Africa to meet in the middle?
It happened one night. I was staying in a hotel. I came back 17 sheets to the wind, and I noticed her for the first time, and I noticed she had very blue eyes.
Okay.
And I said, "You've got very beautiful blue eyes."
17 sheets of the
And I
wind.
walked away. And then I came back 25 minutes later, and I said, that's not the drink just talking. And I walked away again.
Nice. Very nice.
It's a good move.
That's killer right there.
That's
Yeah,
killer.
and she took me for coffee the next day.
There we go.
I didn't have the heart to tell her I don't
There
drink
we
coffee.
go. Well, you realized in between the first statement that you had to smooth this one over, or?
Oh no, it's up to her to smooth it over.
Very good. I like him. He's got a good style. He's got a good style. That works for me.
Wow.
Do you want to take the next one over here? Because I think it's you.
I got
but,
it. Relax.
I'm trying to relax, but I've had too many. So.
So, yeah, I know. I think that's going to be the last one for you. Show one. Last
This
drink
is
for the
rough.
Pharaoh.
This is terrible. 4 shows to go.
Outback. A little bit of tough question, right?
Okay.
You've had some physical conditions happen to you.
Yes.
Tell the people out there emotionally what kind of toll that might take on you, and how it felt when these things started happening to your body, and how do you stay strong?
You got to look at things a certain way. You know, there's chaps will say I've got to go to God, and that's quite reasonable. I've got to go and become friends with, I don't know, Zeus. Okay. I've got to go but the strength either comes from yourself or is supplied from within or it's not. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm some sort of superhuman or anything. I was very distraught when I started to lose my eyesight.
Sure.
And the only thing that helped me with that was I managed to be introduced to a thing called the Lighthouse. And the Lighthouse is a nationwide organization that helps people that are having vision loss and eventually become have full vision loss. It teaches them to adapt and gives them assistance in learning to read Braille, how to function, how to work in a kitchen. No, your own kitchen I'm talking about, you know, and how to do everyday things but you do it just with your eyes closed, even though if they are closed on a permanent basis. And the other thing they teach you to do, they teach you to get back into computing. And that's the thing that actually saved my ass, was being able to compute. I used to type at 70 words a minute from days gone by, and you know, you left that go away, and then it was like, hey, wait a minute, I can use this thing and be taught how to go back on the computer. And there's a company out of Clearwater, Florida called Freedom Scientific, and they have done all kinds of wonderful things for the blind community with a software package called JAWS. And JAWS is a package that takes over your computer and does every single key strike you want and reads it to you, tells it to you, gives you commands, helps you how to do commands. So you've got no fear of doing anything. Even photographs, you get an image in, it will describe the image for you. And a very, very powerful software package. There's another, Humanware is another one, and they make products, physical products, like enhancers to vision enhancers, so you can you put your whatever you want to read down on a desk that's an XY tray that moves around, and then it magnifies, and you can magnify it up. And this is good for people with a diabetic retinopathy or good grief, what am I thinking of? The one with the macular degeneration, or any sort of vision loss. And they do these things, and that gets into the VA for chaps that have served and have had vision loss from injuries in many of the arenas that are overseas. You know, so that helped me tremendously. And I wasn't a fella that necessarily gave up, and it was a little disappointing when I ended up volunteering my lower left leg to science. Science hasn't even written back yet to say it was good. But now that I've got a nice prosthetic on there, it's just like walking. Actually, sometimes it's so much easier. You get up and you go, oh God, I got to get out of bed. And you pull on your inner sleeve, you pull on your outer sleeve, pull on a pair of stockings, slip it up, and I'm up and standing in about a minute. Wow. And I can get it and walk out. And I'm like, hey, that was great. I can snap on whatever I want. I want primrose pink pumps. I can put primrose pink pumps on. I can wear any sort of shoe I want with it.
What made you say, fuck it, I'm going to fight this?
Say again?
What made you say, fuck it, I'm going to fight this when you started to have your physical problems? Oh. Because I'm amazed by this. I mean, what made you toughen up and say, screw it, I'm going to battle this?
It was the thought of actually giving up. And I mean, you know, it's not necessarily in my nature to give up. You know, I don't. I mean, look, you may walk away from one battle. That doesn't mean you've given up a war or going to go into a different direction to fight a different war. You know, that doesn't mean you've given up.
Was it difficult during that time period, or did you have a moment where you just shut off the negative and embrace the positive?
I never got to a point where, and I'm sure some people do, poor buggers, and where they hate the world.
Yeah. Poor
why
bugger.
Did this happen to me?
Sitting right here. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I never really had that. You know, okay. My biggest gauge was when I ever had a drink. And if I had a drink and I started to get angry, that's when it was time to stop to having a drink.
Yeah.
because it was outside exterior forces that were making me angrier when I was responsible to do something for myself.
Excellent.
And whether doing that something for yourself was searching for an answer
Right.
from one of those other organizations or those companies that can produce for you and make life a little more tolerable, that's what I mean.
Sure. Sure.
Well,
All
I
right.
commend you for that, my friend.
Yeah,
I commend you, Pat. And
Major brass balls.
you know,